We've been married, going to be 45 years. I can truthfully say that the Lord has been in the middle of all of it.
Well, we were very backslidden, though. We were both believers, but we were not walking with the Lord in those first years of our marriage.
A lot of people just look at the Lord when things are going good, but we know He's there when the bad stuff happens, too.
We're thankful for mountaintop experiences with our faith, but the Lord decides to let you walk through a trial. If He wasn't going to take it away from us, He was with us and walked us through it. It's all glory and honor to Him because He's lifted us up and brought us through miracles that we could talk about for days. He's brought us through some incredible times in these 45 years together. And I guess if I could say something to people that are newer in their marriage is to be the helpmate to each other, support each other, always be willing to, petition the Lord on behalf of your spouse.
We've been married, going to be 45 years in June. I can truthfully say that the Lord has been in the middle of all of it. He brought us together. I saw her at a wedding and told my roommate I was going to marry her. And he laughed at me and he said, "She's leaving for Colorado tomorrow. You're not marrying anybody." Well, I was sure I was. And a year later?
Year and a half.
She came back and we met at the friend's house that we had been to the wedding for. And that's when the Lord put her in my heart and said, "Yep, see, I brought her back so you could marry her." And 6 months later, I asked her to marry me. And a year later, we got married.
I said no.
Three times. But I knew
He's
the
persistent.
Lord wanted her to be my best half. And I tell people, she's not my better half. She's my best half. And that's because the Lord put her in my heart.
Well, we were very backslidden, though. We were both believers, but we were not walking with the Lord in those first years of our marriage. We had our daughter after we'd been married 7 years.
7 years.
And we were finally expecting. And I remember as a child being dropped off at a church, and my parents didn't go. They just dropped my brother and I off. And that really burdened my heart after our daughter was born. And my sister asked us to a church, and we went and visited. And my daughter, I think, was by that time 18 months old. And I said, the Lord just burdened my heart, and He was drawing me back to Him. And while I didn't know that, He just kept burdening, what you're raising a daughter. You're raising a daughter. That's what I kept hearing. I remember distinctly walking into Him and said, "How are we going to raise our daughter? Is it going to be with the Lord and at church? I won't be a parent that drops off a child at church." That was devastating to me. I won't do it. So we need to decide, are we going to walk with the Lord or are we walking away from the Lord? And I felt drawn to walk with the Lord. And but I wanted Him, as the head of our household, to want that too, not it to be a source of contention with us. And we went, and we were blessed to find a very good church in St. Petersburg.
Yeah.
And we stayed there for the whole time, when we first went there, all the way through when we left there. So we were there for
18 years.
18 years at that church. Then we moved up here. Our daughter went to college up here, and my mother also was living up in this area, and she got very sick. So the Lord drew us up here, and we went to a couple other little churches, and then a good friend of ours led us to this church. And we've just been very blessed to be in this church and to have the Lord in the focus, in the center of our marriage the whole time that we've been together.
Yeah, a lot of people just look at the Lord when things are going good. That He's doing this good stuff for me. But we know He's there when the bad stuff happens, too. There was a time when I basically had a nervous breakdown, and the Lord kept bringing her closer and closer to me to pull me out of it and let me know that He was in charge. He was taking care of us. And no matter what the world wanted to throw at us, He was there. And he put the right people in our paths, the right friends. He helped us to grow stronger together. And that prepared us for when we moved up here and her mother passed away, being stronger during that too. That he was there.
I mean, we're thankful for mountaintop experiences with our faith, but you know, if the Lord decides to let you walk through a trial, and what he was talking about that time, that trial, if he wasn't going to take it away from us, he was with us and walked us through it. He walked us through by way of friends he put in our path, by way of a financial need we had that someone just gifted us. Money came, and you know, when you hear the stories, oh, we got money and we weren't expecting it. Well, that does happen. It happened. It happened to us. We always thought, right, but it did. The Lord provided funds for us to walk us through that trial and that time that he's talking about, and it fortified us to know that he was with us, and the peace that does surpass all understanding. He gave us that through those. Yeah. That was like a 2 or 3 year trial, and the Lord just kept providing blessing after blessing after blessing. That even to me getting like the right job, I had to change jobs, and I had to walk into a friend and I said, I really need a job. And she said, well, I can only pay you this much money. Well, it was doubling my salary, and she didn't even know it. So she even just gave me the finances that I needed while he was recovering during that period. I mean, I just walked in and said, I really could use a job. And she just offered it up. And she was like, I'm really sorry, I can only pay you this much. And I was like, she didn't know what a blessing that was, to have my income doubled, to know that I could help our household during this time frame. And he just blesses like that. So we feel so incredibly blessed at this point in our lives that, you know, it's all glory and honor to him, because he's lifted us up and brought us through miracles that we could talk about for days. But I mean, it's just literally, he's brought us through some incredible times in these 45 years together, and with incredible friends too. So we've been very, very blessed.
A little over 3 years ago, I was diagnosed with bladder cancer. And most people, when the doctor tells you cancer, you get, you know, your heart starts racing, you get worried about, you know, what's just going to... That didn't happen with me. I was at peace knowing that, okay, if God put this in my path, he has a way for me to walk through it. And I just need to rely upon him. And he put the right doctor in my path to help me through all of that. And then a year later, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and the same feeling. There was no anxiety over it. There was just peace knowing God was in control, and that I would go through it one way or the other, but he would be by my side, and she would be by my side, because
he walked us both through it. He's walking us through it.
He's my helper.
He's been incredibly gracious to us in that, even minor illnesses, like this past week, when I was ill, he wasn't. So when he was ill, I wasn't. So he's allowed us to be able to help each other. And I mean, that's just a testimony to the Lord, helping us, knowing what each other needed. And I guess if I could say something to people that are newer in their marriage, is to be the helpmate to each other, support each other, don't compete each other. I've seen couples that compete in everything, in sports and everything. They want to win. And I've never been a supporter of that, because I think you have to work together as a team and support each other and have each other's backs, and always be willing to, you know, petition the Lord on behalf of your spouse and your family. And so it's been a blessing. The Lord's answered so many prayers. It's been a blessing.
Yeah, the only thing we compete in is in games. And at one time, I was very, very competitive. I was cutthroat competitive. And the Lord worked me through all that. But marriage is not a game. It's a bond between two people to, as the Bible tells you, become one. And that one walks through the path that God lights. And we're just so grateful for him, for all he's done.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, there have been three young couples here in the church that before they got married, Pastor Rob asked them to talk to us because of the fact that we had been married so
right.
long.
It's true.
And the one thing we told them, well, two things. Number one was, don't make it a battle of being competitive that you always have to be on top. You are in this together. Talk to each other. Work things out together.
Compromise.
Don't hold everything back and then blow up. Talk about it as it happens. You're both going to have to compromise in your life one way or the other, but know that you're doing it with love.
And keep the Lord first in your marriage. Don't slowly slip away from fellowshipping. Stay in the church and get the fellowship and camaraderie that you support each other through hard times. And in this church, we've seen people lose family members. We've seen birth of children, and lots of them lately.
Yeah.
But being plugged in someplace is so important. As a young couple, when we were first married, and we had a great group of, it wasn't a large church, but it had enough that we had a group of us that are still in contact, even though we live up here and they live in St. Petersburg.
And some live in Tennessee.
And some live in Tennessee. We're in touch with those people, and we're friends to this day. So to have a very strong fellowship of believers is really critical, I think, in a marriage. Being plugged in, doing life with them, and that bond, especially down in St. Petersburg when we were in our 30s and 40s, and they're the best friends we've ever had, and we stay in touch with them to this day. And even the people that were a generation older than us, we still keep up with them. A lot of them, that we that have not gone to be with the Lord yet, we're still in fellowship. So I think having a very solid foundation and a place to fellowship is truly makes a huge difference in our lives.